Welcome back, everyone. Today we're doing another deep dive.
Yeah, this one's fascinating.
It really is. We're looking at just one specific narrative, sometimes called The Storm in the Voice. It's from the Gospels.
Hmm.
And our goal, really, is to unpack what this single story suggests about, well, power and command.
It's a potent example.
Definitely. So let's set the scene. You've got Jesus and his disciples. It's evening. They're crossing the Sea of Galilee in a boat.
Sounds peaceful enough to start.
Right. But then, bam! This incredibly violent storm just kicks up, seemingly out of nowhere.
And we're not talking just a bit of wind and rain.
No, not at all. The text says waves were crashing over the boat, like seriously threatening to sink it.
And these weren't novices on the water either.
Exactly. That's a key point. Many were fishermen. They knew this sea, but they were terrified.
Genuinely thought they were going to die. Their experience told them this was bad, like really bad.
Right. Their fear wasn't ignorance. It was knowledge of how dangerous it was. And the craziest part,
He's asleep.
Jesus is asleep. On a cushion, no less, just resting peacefully through this absolute chaos.
That contrast is pretty stark. Tells you something right there.
So naturally, the disciples are panicking. They shake him awake, yelling something like, "Lord, save us. We're going to die."
You can feel the desperation in that, pure terror.
Absolutely. So what happens next is where it gets really interesting.
Well, Jesus wakes up,
Mm.
and the account describes him as being, remarkably calm. He stands up.
Amidst all the wind and waves.
Yeah. He looks at it all, the raging storm, and he just speaks. He says, peace, be still. Just those words.
Simple word.
Deceptively simple, because the text makes a huge point of this. In an instant, it says everything stopped.
Instantly. Not like it gradually calmed down.
No, that's the emphasis. The wind died, the waves went flat, the sea became silent. Complete, immediate obedience.
Wow.
It's presented as an act of pure command, not a struggle or a process.
Okay, so imagine being one of those disciples. 1 minute, you're certain you're drowning. The next, complete calm.
Total whiplash.
Right. And the text says they were just amazed, utterly astonished, and they start whispering to each other.
A big question.
Yeah. Who's this man that even the wind and the sea obey him? It's like their whole understanding of reality just got tilted.
And that question hangs there, but the narrative itself, the source we're looking at, provides its own answer, doesn't it?
It does, very directly.
Yeah, the interpretation offered right there in the source connects this display of power directly to his identity. It concludes, quite explicitly,
Go on.
he is not just a man, he's God. That's the assertion.
So the source argues that only God could possess that kind of absolute power.
Exactly. The power to command creation itself, the natural elements, just with his voice, and receive that kind of instantaneous obedience. It's presented as inherent authority, not power you negotiate or fight for, but something intrinsic.
Authority where the word is the action, basically.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Will and result are one and the same in that moment.
Okay, so stepping back then, what does this specific story, this type of command over a storm, tell us about power itself, according to this narrative?
Well, I think it presents power in its most absolute, perhaps fundamental form. It's not about influence or coercion as we usually think of it.
Right, not political power or social power.
No. It's depicted as an inherent quality, an authority that doesn't need validation or struggle. It simply is, and it reshapes reality, turns chaos into order just by speaking. It really challenges our everyday notions of what power means.
That's a really profound point. It makes you think differently.
Mm.
Which leads us perfectly to the final thought we want to leave you with today. Consider this. What does it truly mean for any figure to possess that kind of undisputed command over the very elements?
And thinking about that, what might it suggest about the ultimate source, the fundamental nature of power itself?
Something to chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.